pregnant and alone? You have options. The Sanctuary of Hope offers expectant mothers ages 12 to 22 a place to live, medical care, counseling, continued education, and options to raise your baby in a loving environment or help you with adoption. We want to help provide you and your baby with a bright future. Call us or email us today and let's walk through this together. 210-499-1554 or sohcares.org. All inquiries are confidential.
The Dear Agency specializes in helping you understand your coverage before you need it. We offer all lines of personal and commercial insurance, including auto, home, and life. Contact Dawn Deere at 210-507-2169 and visit us at 7529 North Loop 1604 in Live Oak, Texas, or farmersagent.com/ddeer.
You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shemaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shemaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. I'm your host, Shemaya Reed, and we are here once again with another amazing show for you all today. We have a special guest, Dr. Mark R. McLaughlin. He is a special person today on this show, and I could spend probably the next 15 minutes reading his bio. But let me just say some of the things that he's doing great in today's world. Number one, he is a practicing board-certified neurosurgeon. He has an amazing book called Cognitive Dominance, A Brain Surgeon's Quest to Outthink Fear. He travels doing amazing talks, and he has ties to the military. And before I just wear you out with some of the details, I just want to bring him to the show, introduce him to the audience, and say, how are you doing today, sir?
It's my honor to be here, Shemaya.
I just want to get you in the show right now and have you talk to the audience and tell them a little bit about yourself, because I couldn't do justice talking about the amazing things that you have accomplished in your life. Tell us a little bit about you, sir.
Sure. You know, I'm a 54-year-old practicing neurosurgeon, and I have been very fortunate throughout my life. I had wonderful parents and family and grandparents and coaches along the way who have helped me get to where I am. And I'm very fortunate because I have a loving wife and children, too, who support me to help me do the best I can to serve the world as a doctor and as a wrestling coach. So I get a lot of help along the way, and I always want to recognize them. And one of the most influential people in my life was my father, who was an Army man. He joined the Army right after he graduated from high school and served. And then he went to the U.S. Reserves after that, Army Reserves, and went to college on the GI Bill in New Jersey. And then he went back into the Army and then came back and went through law school on the GI Bill. And he was a fitness fanatic, and he went through law school at night, and he credited weightlifting, which back in the 1950s was thought probably dangerous, and crazy. But he was an early adopter of weightlifting and exercise, and said it gave him energy in night school and got him through. And so my brothers and sister and we were all fortunate to be exposed to health and fitness at a very young age. And it's pretty funny because the picture on my book is of a hand gripper, the old-fashioned hand gripper. And I tell the story in the book about how whenever you were in the car and we were stopped at a red light, he'd squeeze that gripper and you'd hear the click-to-tink, 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 click-to-tink every time. And that sound is something that is just an amazing memory of driving in the car with my dad. So he's been the inspiration for me. He went on to do 40 years of law school, and then of law school and practice. And then at the end of his career, at the age of 75, he retired and went back to school and got a PhD in history, and then wrote a military history book called Albert Wedemeyer, who was a West Point graduate. And he published that at the age of 83, and then he published his second book at the age of 88. So I had a role model all the way through my life, and up to very shortly before my father's passing, I had the example of, hey, stay fit, do as much as you can, don't waste a second of your life, and try to pass your wisdom on to others. And so that's what sort of inspired me to write this book, Cognitive Dominance.
The military, it has leadership skills, it has development skills for just keeping your mindset right, having discipline. What's some of the things that your father taught you growing up that stuck with you your whole life?
Well, it was really about persistence. He was extremely persistent and determined to make, a better life for his kids and to give his kids every opportunity that they could get. But most importantly, it was really passing on the wisdom. He was a huge reader, and, he would send me notes or photocopies of an interesting chapter, and he would send them to me, when I was in college and beyond, and say, this is something that you should read. It's about leadership. Here's an article about Lyndon B. Johnson, and here's how he unified the governors immediately after, all the governors of all the states after Kennedy's assassination. And, he would give me an article to read, or he would send me a lecture that illustrated a way of great oration, and so he was just constantly drinking up knowledge and then passing it on. And I think one of the lessons he taught me too is, if you share the knowledge that you learned, it sticks with you better too. It's good for you as well as the world. So that was an important part of growing up, and I was so fortunate to have such a great relationship with him throughout my whole life. I was very blessed.
And we are talking to Dr. Mark R. McLaughlin. He is a board-certified neurosurgeon, a national media commentator, and author of the book Cognitive Dominance, A Brain Surgeon's Quest to Outthink Fear. While you were growing up, before college, what were you kind of into?
I was into wrestling. Mm-hmm. I had an amazing coach, John Cerruto, who coached many wrestlers in my hometown of Millburn, Short Hills, New Jersey. And I was really, took to wrestling, and John instilled a lot of perseverance in me as well, teaching me that, what you get out of something is what you put into it, and to really believe in yourself. So I learned that wrestling. I took up wrestling in 6th grade, which is pretty young at the time. Nowadays, I'd probably be a late starter, but I got into it, and I had a wonderful group of coaches and teammates, and that stuck with me through high school, and it got me into college. It got me into William & Mary on a wrestling scholarship, and I had great coaches at William & Mary too, who always emphasized, being a scholar athlete first. So I was always focused on going to medical school. But I definitely had that sort of humanities bug. I wanted to learn about many different subjects, and I thought that if I could study philosophy in college, and that it would make me a better doctor, that it would make me more well-rounded, that I'd be able to relate to people better. And so I was fortunate to, be able to redshirt 1 year. So that gave me an extra year of wrestling, and it gave me an extra year of studies. So I was able to spread my studies out over 5 years, and that allowed me to take the pre-medical curriculum, but also be able to major in philosophy, which I'm so glad I did, because I got a great background in philosophy, and I was able to carry that with me through medicine. And it helped me really formulate some of the basic premises of my book, which has a lot of philosophy in it. It sort of samples philosophical theories from William James and David Hume and René Descartes. So it's that sort of eclectic concept of the being just a well-rounded scholar that helped me write this book.
Yeah, after your bachelor's degree in philosophy at the College of William and Mary, you went on to the medical education. Talk to us to the early stages of your medical career. What were some of your goals that you had in your mind as you were going through medical school?
Sure. And again, I had such great role models in my life. My grandfather was a doctor, and, he was one of my idols, and I used to walk with him on house calls. I used to carry his black bag on house calls. So I knew that I wanted to be a physician as a young boy. So when I got to medical school, I knew I wanted to be just like my grandfather. So I had sort of a bend towards surgery. And, surgery is sort of an athletic performance, so I already had that in me being a wrestler. And I just sort of pursued, medicine. Medical school exposes you to all of the areas of medicine: psychiatry, pediatrics, obstetrics, general surgery. So I got to see everything, and I realized while I was there that my personality was sort of suited to a surgeon. Surgeon's mentality is more of like sort of a little bit more of an engineering focus, fix something, there's a pump that's broken, fix it, and you sort of see immediate results. Medical doctors, internal medicine doctors that, manipulate people's blood pressure medicines and take care of diabetes and high blood pressure and those kinds of things, they have, they actually take care of many, many more patients than surgeons do. But they have a different sort of long-term perspective, and they tend to manage a whole bunch of different variables. So I just found that my personality was more suited towards surgery, and I got exposed to some great mentors in neurosurgery and realized that was the area I really liked. It was demanding, it was high stakes and high risk. So I thought that brain surgery was as close to wrestling as I could get in medicine. So I picked brain surgery, and I never looked back. I really have enjoyed my 20 years. I had 8 years of training and then 20 years of being a neurosurgeon at this point.
And with over 100 articles published in neurosurgery and textbook that you had the opportunity to work on and publish cervical spine surgery, and you edited a textbook, how did you keep your priorities right when it comes to time management, when it comes to your goals? How did you weed out what was necessary and what was unnecessary in your life? Probably
the best thing that I did was my environment of excellence. Who were the people that I hung around with? And every time along my career in college and in medical school and then in residency, when I talked to somebody who really seemed like they knew a lot more than I did, I said, gosh, and they could explain it well, I said, God, I got to hang around with this person. So when I was in medical school, it seemed like the neurosurgery guys, they had boundless energy. They were rounding in the hospital 11 o'clock at night, and they were having a good time, and they seemed to be in good spirits, even though they were working like dogs. And so I started hanging around with them, and I noticed that they were very meticulous and detail-oriented. And I wasn't at the time, and I had to get that way if I was going to hang with these people. And then I bumped into Dr. Janetta for the first time. I did a rotation at the University of Pittsburgh, and Dr. Janetta is one of the fathers of neurosurgery. And just hanging around him for a few minutes, I said, "Oh my gosh, I've got to spend some time with this person. He's fascinating. He's well-read. He thinks big. He treats me like an equal, even though I'm no equal to him." And I just thought the more time I spend around this person, the more I'm going to learn. And similarly, when I finished my residency and was thinking about fellowships, which is the next step in your training, sort of a finishing school, I bumped into another person, Dr. Regis Haid, and I said the same thing. I said, gosh, I've got to spend another year with this person to learn everything I can about them and try to just be a sponge, just take in everything that they do, to keep meticulous notes, tailor it to your own style, but these are geniuses. They're top of the field people, and the more you can emulate them, the better. So it was a lot of mirroring and paying attention to how they handled problems. And so that's really what it was. It was the environment of excellence more than anything. And And then infrastructure. So that was one of the things that Dr. Janetta taught me, was that, you can't be learning a surgical skill and spending all that time and editing a paper. So he provided us with editors to help us. He would say, you need to write this thing, but let me use my editor to help, work on this and wordsmith it and make it better for the public. Let them edit it and put references in for you. So he provided us with an infrastructure to publish papers, and he was very generous with us too. So he would say, listen, I have this research project. If you do the majority of the work, you'll be the first author on it. So he would be the mastermind of the project, but he would let you be the first author, which was also very generous and helped promote your career. And I carry that with me now. I mean, there's nothing more that I love doing than taking somebody who's a medical student or a pre-medical student and trying to help them further their career, advance them with the generosity of having those keys to open the doors for people. And that's what he taught me. So I hung around those people as best as I could. That was probably the one thing I really learned. And
you're listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Wedemeyer Reed, talking to Dr. Mark R. McLaughlin. His bio is pages long because all of the hard work that he has done over the years and accomplishments. There's some things I do want to make sure we mention. He has a father that served our military. I first want to say thank you for your father's service. And he inspired you to do a lot of amazing things. You do lecture series. You do collaborations with the military. You did a collaboration with the Modern War Institute, and you also did some lectures for United States Military Academy. You do a lot of stuff with the military, but what inspired you to keep that going, to keep giving your time to military platforms?
Well, I have a longtime friend who is one of the founders of the Center for Enhanced Performance at West Point. His name is Dr. Nate Zinzer, and he was a mentor for me for many years and a colleague now who invited me to speak about human performance in neurosurgery to the cadets at one of his classes called the Psychology of Elite Performance at West Point. And so about 10, maybe 12 years ago, I began lecturing up there. And what they asked me to do originally was just talk about concentration and what that means to a neurosurgeon. Talk about execution. What does that mean to a neurosurgeon? Talk about precision. What does that mean to a neurosurgeon? So I went up there and I began just sort of sharing stories about what that means, what I think about before I go through a surgery, how many steps I make to prepare, what is my game time routine, what happens when something goes wrong, how do I handle it. And I began realizing that, first of all, there were a lot of similarities between doing neurosurgery and being somebody in the military who has to pay attention to discipline and focus and routines and rituals. So I found that very interesting. And, I said to them in one of my talks, I said, I can never be casual in the operating room, nor can you be casual when you're on duty. Because if we are casual, we become, or our people that we're protecting become casualties. Casual, the word casual and casualties comes from the same Latin root. And so I began seeing so many of the similarities, and I enjoyed giving these talks so much. It was just so inspiring to talk to the cadets that I said, I've got to keep doing this. I got more out of it than I think they did. So the relationship grew, and along the way, because my father had written a military book about General Wedemeyer, who was one of the world's greatest strategic generals, one of our unsung heroes in the United States, we endowed a lectureship at West Point to honor General Wedemeyer, and we have a yearly lecture through the Modern War Institute. It's been fantastic. We've had some amazing generals. General McChrystal spoke last year, and it's a way of bringing strategic leadership to the next level. And we're talking about taking it to the cream of the cream of the cream when you're going to some place like West Point. So it's been very inspiring for me, and I feel it's my duty as a citizen to share what I know. And I'm thrilled and honored and proud that my son, Patrick, attended the Naval Academy and graduated in May, and is now headed to Quantico to go to the basic school for the United States Marine Corps. So I have a son in the military, and we're all very proud of him.
Thank you for his service as well. And you also spoke recently to leadership of the 10th Special Forces Unit at Fort Carson, Colorado. What are some of the key elements, someone listening right now, whether military or not military, what are some of the key elements to develop that mindset of precision and detail-oriented?
Well, I think it's an attention to detail. It's a mindset of constant improvement and growth. It's a mindset of resilience. It's a mindset to continually aim and aim and aim, and understand that you're not always going to hit the target. But if you don't have a target there to hit, you're never going to get there. So if you pull the bow back and you miss the target completely, okay, reload, refocus, get a little closer. But if you don't know exactly where you want to go, you need to really figure that out first. I mean, you need a map, and you need to know where you are and where you want to go. And that's really life. I mean, we're all in a place where we exist right now, and usually that's a place where maybe it's okay, but it's not where we want to be. So we need to move from where we are to where we want to be. And along the way, as we're getting to that place where we want to be, these events in our lives come into our lives. I call them unexpected fear events. And we spell them in the book, P-H-E-R-E. My co-writer came up with this word fear. Sounds like the word fear, but it's actually P-H-E-R-E. And while we're on our path from where we are to where we should be, these fear events come and they hit us. And when they hit us, they can be either creative or destructive. And it's up to us to sort of break these events down. These events are transformative events. They are the ray of light that can melt a snowflake or can hit a leaf and stimulate chlorophyll to make energy. They're, an event that can be creative like the Gutenberg Press, or an event like the falling of the Twin Towers that can change our worldview forever. So we need to take on these events, and we need to break them down. And that's what I talk about in the book, a process of breaking these events down into their components, their subjective and objective components, break them down into whether they're a tool or obstacle for us and how known or unknown they are. And by going through this process of really unpacking the event, we can map it out and we can figure out what we need to do about it. So that's really the crux of the book. That's what cognitive dominance is. Cognitive dominance is defined by the military as enhanced situational awareness that facilitates rapid and accurate decision-making under stressful conditions with limited decision-making time. And when I first heard that, I heard it when I was up at West Point, I thought, wow, how do I get more of that? I like that. I want to get more cognitively dominant. And the way it is, how to do that is to strengthen those skills to unpack unexpected events that hit us in our lives.
Man, I'm over here listening, just taking it all in like a sponge. Like, man, this is really good information, because a lot of times, I mean, we all know what's going on with the stress of COVID-19. There's a lot of people in different circumstances, and there's a lot of different levels of stress. What will you say to the audience living out there? Because this situation is happening globally. It's not just happening here locally in the United States. What will you say to that individual who may be dealing with different stress levels? What's some of the things that they can do right now to attack fear? Because that is a great situation right now that's going through a lot of people's lives.
Sure, absolutely. So let me talk you through it. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a pencil and a blank piece of paper and draw a horizontal line, all right? and call that horizontal line the x-axis, and then draw a vertical line that intersects that horizontal line right in the middle. So now you're looking at a graph, right? That's a 4-quadrant Cartesian coordinate system with an x-axis along the horizontal and a y-axis along the vertical. Now, along the x-axis, I want you to put micro goals, and I want you to put objective facts. And along the y-axis, I want you to put macro goals and put subjective truths. So just to kind of big picture thing, the x-axis, those are the micro goals that we're trying to achieve in our life. If we get something that's good, it's in the positive realm of the x-axis. If we get hit with something that's negative, it's in the y-axis. So that's maybe like a job promotion. All right, job promotion, yeah, that'd be positive on the x-axis. Let's say a job demotion, that would be a negative on the x-axis. All right. Well, let's add to that job promotion with a boss that you don't like, or it turns out to be a real problem. That's subjectively a negative, right? That's not good for you. So you'd be positive on the x-axis and negative on the y-axis. That would put you in the lower right-hand quadrant. That's something I call the calm before the storm, right? Something good happens to you, but it doesn't feel good. There's something wrong about it. For me, that was when I was a young neurosurgeon, and I operated on this young boy, and I did this beautiful operation to remove the tumor in his brain, and he woke up and had terrible, terrible complications, just despite the MRI scan looking like I had gotten the whole tumor out. And I was in this terrible sort of feeling like, what's going on here? I did all this training, I did everything right, and here this boy isn't doing well. And I felt bad about it. So I had a objective positive, I did a great operation, but a subjective negative. I felt terrible about it because I felt responsible that this poor boy wasn't doing well. That's the calm before the storm quadrant. Let me take you to a few other quadrants, and then we can talk about what to do. So how about when you are everything is feeling great? You get objectively, let's say you get a notice in the mail that says we're going to decrease your property taxes, right? So that's a positive on the x-axis, right? And let's say subjectively, you just had an opportunity to go to school, but you didn't have the tuition to go to school. Now you have money to go to school, and somebody provided you, so you got an opportunity to go to school, and you got money to go to school. Boom. That's a positive X and a positive Y. Now you're in the upper right-hand quadrant of the axis, right? Of the 4-quadrant system. Are you following me?
Yes.
Good. So you're in the upper right-hand quadrant. That's something I call flow. Now we all know flow. Flow is when, gosh, we can do no wrong. We can, anything that happens to us suddenly turns into a tool, and we're being highly, highly successful, and it works out great, Let's go to the upper left-hand quadrant. That's when objectively something's negative, but from your own perspective, it's actually positive. So I tell a story in the book about how I'm operating, and I'm trying to remove another tumor in another patient, and I can't find the tumor. I drop down right exactly where I think the tumor is. I'm deep inside the brain, and I'm looking around, and I can't find the tumor. It's gone. And I have to pick up the phone and call my partner who is busy and can't help me, and I have to figure out what's gone wrong with this operation. So I have to go through this whole process. All right, am I on the right side of the head? Am I in the right spot? Is this the right patient? Did the tumor go away in the last few days? All these things are running through my head. And what I end up doing is I turn to the room and I say, listen, I'm a little confused here. I'm a little bit lost, and we're going to start from the top and go in. And so I backed out, and I started going back layer by layer, down to where I thought the tumor was. And I was talking aloud with the whole room, saying, this is what I'm doing now, this is what I'm doing now, this is what I'm doing now. And what I was doing was I was sort of narrating my way through the problem. And as I got down there, I just had a little bit more confidence to go a little bit deeper, and then all of a sudden I found the tumor. And I was like, oh, it was just smaller than my mind's eye thought it was, and it was tucked a little bit farther under an area that I didn't expect it to be. And then I found it, I got it, and I removed it, and everything went well. But in that quadrant, I was totally terrified, but I figured a way out to get through it. So I call that quadrant the birthing a new skill set quadrant. That's where you objectively have something that bad has happened, but you realize it's the best thing that could have ever happened to you because you learned how to deal with it, you got through it, and now you're a better person for it.
That makes total sense.
That's the birthing a new skill set quadrant.
Now that makes
total
sense. Yeah, because you're basically adapting to the situation versus letting the situation swallow you up.
Exactly. So do you have time for the all is lost quadrant, the lower left-hand quadrant?
Oh, yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Great. So I tell a story in my book about Ivana Medwood. Ivana is my grandmother-in-law. Ivana, at the age of 32, was living in the town of Stry, which is a small town in Ukraine, and she was a school teacher. She had just been, it was 1944, and very shortly before then, Ukraine had been taken over by the Soviets, and she was given a new curriculum to teach. She was no longer going to be teaching Ukraine history. She was going to be teaching Russian history, and she was going to be teaching her students that Father Stalin was the person that they believed in who would take care of everybody, and that the Russian collectivization was a good thing. So she, in her own world, secretly continued to teach Ukrainian lessons and Ukrainian history until the day came when they had a recital, and one of the children inadvertently recited a Ukrainian poem instead of a Russian poem, and the Soviet monitor found out that she was teaching these lessons. And within the course of about an hour, she had to pack up all of her stuff with her husband and her 6-year-old child, jump in a truck, and leave the home that she had lived in since she was a child to get away from the Soviets and the soldiers, and to flee to try and become a refugee to get away from the Russians. And along the way, she gets captured with her husband and her daughter. She gets captured, and she is ultimately placed on a firing line, about to be shot, standing on the edge of this pit of bodies. And as the soldier reaches up to shoot her with the gun, she pulls her cross out, and she blesses the soldier in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And the soldier is so unbelievably taken back by this woman who, at the moment of her death, is blessing the person who is about to kill her. And the soldier fires the shot up in the air and pushes her into the pit, and fires the shot up into the air and pushes their husband into the pit. Then he fires a shot in the air, and he reaches down and picks up the girl and hands her down into the pit to the mother and father. So his commanding officer heard 3 shots, but he let them go. And it was such an amazing story when my girlfriend, who was going to become my wife after I heard this story like this about her family, I couldn't believe it, because while Ivana had zero control over when she was going to die, she had complete control over how she would die. She had a belief system that she would not surrender to the very end of her life. And that's the kind of thing that you need to fall back on when times are dark. That's when you need to really dig deep and say, all right, what is the ultimate value system? For her, It was not teaching something that she didn't believe in, and it was continued belief in God and in Jesus that she would take with her all the way to the end of her life. And that gesture saved her and ultimately resulted in my wife's birth and resulted in my marriage. And it would have never happened had she not stuck to her guns and blessed that soldier on that day.
Man, that's a great story. We are talking to Dr. Mark R. McLaughlin. He is a practicing board-certified neurosurgeon, a national media commentator, author of a book that I think everyone should go get right now, Cognitive Dominance, A Brain Surgeon's Quest to Outthink Fear. And his work has been in everything. I mean, Business Insider, Reader's Digest, MSN. I mean, the list is long, but what I hear from this talk today is a series of choices made. Talk to that audience about the importance of making decisions, because sometimes we can get stuck in life and things don't really change until you change. And when you, like you said earlier in the show, you surround yourself with the smarter people who can influence you to take the right steps and do better in life. Touch on that a little bit for the audience.
Sure. I guess I would start with, when I was young, I really wasn't any good at any particular activity. I wasn't a great student. I wasn't a great athlete. And I was just sort of a mediocre kind of ball of maybe potential. And through first the sport of wrestling and then through some unbelievable teachers and role models and leaders, I slowly changed into a person who became driven to fitness, to scholar athleticism, and then ultimately to medicine. And it's not something that happens overnight. It happens in very, very subtle shades along the way. And it's still happening for me, because the attitude has got to be, compare yourself to who you are yesterday and make sure that the person today is better than the one yesterday. And I had a wrestling mom. I love this quote she always tells me, and it's gentle pressure applied relentlessly. And that's really, I think, the key to getting better at making decisions, to getting better at being a better person for yourself and for others. So I'm constantly striving to just get myself a little bit better, read a little bit more, learn a new word today, be a little more kinder. Whatever it is, just keep working and on getting yourself a little bit better. So, for instance, just reading in and of itself, I wasn't a strong reader until I had to run my own business. And then I realized, gosh, I've got to become a reader. And I slowly but surely started increasing my reading, and now I find it to be, one of the greatest sources of my knowledge base. So I guess my parting thought would be, you can do anything you want. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens with very slow changes. And if you can gently apply pressure to yourself relentlessly, you can become the person you want to become.
That one part that you said, it was very powerful. Make sure the person you are today is better than the person you were yesterday. That right there, if people just let that marinate for a little bit, that makes total sense, because you can either spend your life looking at the rearview mirror or you can keep going forward.
Absolutely.
Once again, we're talking to Dr. Mark R. McLaughlin. He is, doing great things. I want you to tell people how they can get your book and the best way they can contact you through your website or email.
Sure. So my book is available on Amazon. So that's the probably the easiest way for you to get it. If you're looking for bulk purchases, you can get it through the publisher, Black Irish Publishing. And my website, markmclaughlinmd.com, has a number of blogs that I've written, and it has something called a cognitive dominance assessment. So it's a free quiz that you can take that can help you see where you're at and what your personality is like for cognitive dominance, and it gives you some tips on how you can improve yourself.
Well, once again, I want to thank you, Dr. Mark R. McLaughlin, for being on I Am Refocused Radio. I think this is a show episode that you want to share with everybody, especially people who are trying to do great things in life but may be getting hung up on some things, whatever that situation may be. I think you should share this episode to help somebody. So before we let you go, is there any parting thoughts you would like to tell the audience before we let you leave?
God bless, and hang in there through this crisis. Try to move from the fear zone to the learning zone to the growth zone. The fear zone, that's when we complain. That's when we transmit anger. That's when we're hoarding and thinking about ourselves. The learning zone is when we start verifying information before we share it. It's where we identify our emotions and start letting go of things that are out of our control. And then the true growth zone is where we show empathy to ourselves and others, where we use our skills to service others in need, where we help ourselves emotionally and transmit hope and show gratefulness for the things that we do have. So I hope that everybody out there, you and your loved ones, are safe, and God bless you all.
Well, once again, this is I Am Refocused Radio, your host, Wedemeyer Reed, talking to Dr. Mark R. McLaughlin. You can go to markmclaughlинmd.com. You can check out all his amazing work that he's doing currently and what he has done in the past. So like we say on every single show, keep God first, stay focused, and peace.
Hi, San Antonio. Need a barber? Visit our good friend Rico Rodriguez, the owner of Rockefeller's Barbershop in San Antonio, Texas, 1733 Babcock Road, and book your appointment today by calling 210-782-5188.